a wonderful thing to do if you got some books, at least to my mind, that is a good thing to do, is to just take one of those books. And this is not a new thing, of course, but I just enjoy doing it, taking a book, and then yeah, that is the thing. You just take one of them books, preferably a spiritual book, right? If that's your interest, reading spiritual books as it is for me. You take one of those books. So I have a few of them here, and you choose one. You can choose one even at random, but either way, you get one of them. And when you have one in your hand, I'm gonna choose. This isn't random. I wanted this one. This is the Ribhu Gita. It's a book, or the essence of the Ribhu Gita. I imagine it's something that is condensed. Ramana Maharishi often referred to this and said that it was good, so that means it is. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a random page and see where we end up. Okay, so this is page 15, and it says on 23 at the top of the page, anything seen as other than Brahman's self is bound to cause fear and trouble. Therefore, it behooves one to stick to the single attitude that everything sensed is Brahman's self alone. In due course, even this one thought must be given up in order to abide firmly in the free, undisturbed, blissful state of the soul Brahman self. Okay, so there you go. Let's unpack it. So anything seen as other than Brahman self is bound to cause fear and trouble. The way I would view it is that everything seen outside of you, basically. So what Ramana often teaches, often taught, it's past tense, and what many spiritual teachers, of course, in the non-duality tradition and advaita vedanta and much of Zen Buddhism. It can be coached in different ways, of course, but in essence, many of them speak about oneness, basically. So if there's only one, you are that one, and everything is that one. So it's pretty simple. Yet, if we see something as other, not in terms of, like a cognitive thing, it is cognitive, of course, when we do it, but I don't mean other as me and another, like I'm the separate self and there's another separate self. That is, of course, in a way what happens, but this is on a larger scale, I would say. As soon as something is other than the identification is not supposed to be with the separate self since from the beginning. I guess much of it hangs together in different ways, but you can have the realization of no self. You can have the ego fall away, but still have the sense of not being everything, basically. Not being the self, or the Brahman self. Ramana used to say just the self, but we can say the Brahman self as it's written here. I don't know if this refers to something else, but what do I know? So the Brahman self, when you abide in that, right, also like Ramana, I don't know, I'm referring to him, that he was the one recommending this book. When you abide in that, everything is that. And as they say, even that thought is a thought and hence should be given up in the end. But there's a way to it. So the way is often to first seeing through the veil, or seeing through the egoic self, the narrative self, and realizing, that identification didn't bring me much joy. Not just as an intellectual idea, of course, but as an actual experience. Yet the next, that could be called if we want to put terms on it, could be called an awakening, sort of sorts. Sort of awakening to beyond the self, or beyond the small self, that is, beyond the ego, waking up from the illusion of the ego, then we have something that is more, on the continuum, more towards, I think Adyashanti has spoken about this at some point, more towards enlightenment. If we want to make those distinctions, awakening can be seen as just awakening or waking up from the egoic self, but it doesn't really, it doesn't need to entail the type of enlightenment that will come from realizing the self. So your old identity has fallen away, and in some traditions that is the end goal. In much of Zen literature at least, there they speak about the true self is no self, and that's of course true. And they tend to speak more in terms of negations, like the apophatic theology in Christian mysticism, or neti neti by Nagarjuna in Buddhism. So it's to some extent it's just depending on what perspective you take. But we can say waking up from the ego is the first step. Second step is realizing the self, the new identity. So, and this is what they call the Brahman self, waking up, realizing you are everything. Or neither. I mean, it is, even that isn't the ultimate teaching. The ultimate teaching is beyond words, beyond categories, beyond good or bad, right or wrong, or even the self. But we need to say something, or we don't need to say anything really. But if we want to, we can. And we can speak about the continuum. Even though there's no continuum, there's no awakening, there's nothing in them. But again, depends on perspective, depends on what what types of words come out of the mouths from different people. I'm going to read it again. Anything seen as other than Brahman self is bound to cause fear and trouble. So if we see, so if if we see something else, it's we and the other. It is in essence dualistic, which we don't want to have, of course. We want to be non-dual. And therefore, it behooves one to stick to the single attitude that everything sensed is Brahman self alone, just as a dream. I love that. I love it. Yeah, maybe. I love that analogy with a dream. A dream at night, you feel like you're an individual person walking around. You see different stuff there. You see you see trees, you see the sky, you see a book, maybe like I'm seeing right now in front of me. Yet it's just a projection of the mind. Everything is the mind, or the Brahman self, or whatever we want to call it. Something is creating everything. Everything is one thing. That is true in a dream, and everyone agrees. So that's what I love, that analogy. You don't need to believe in anything. You don't need to have had an experience. You just cognitively get it. It doesn't mean that you have the experience of being of being that creator, or being oneself, or not being the individual self, but you know that you're not. In the dream, it's just a fiction, right? That you're one of the characters in the dream. You're the dreamer, and everyone knows that. Everyone would agree to it in the dream, regarding the dream. In this world, though, in the waking state, not everybody agrees, but that this is what traditions say. This is what Ramana Maharishi teaches, and the Ribhu Gita as well, that this is all a sort of projection. Everything is Brahma says, everything is coming from the same source. You are not separate from that source, neither is anything else in the phenomenal world. Okay, therefore it behooves one to stick to saying blah, blah, blah. In due course, even this one thought must be given up in order to abide firmly in the free, undisturbed, blissful state of the soul Brahman self. So all thoughts, in a way, has to be given up. And in this particular particular instance, right, they're referring to, I lost the page now, so everything. I also love the Heart Sutra from it's a Buddhist sutra, in which they state this truth very succinctly. They also speak about, there is we about going into the non-dual, but even non-duality is a thought, even oneness is a thought, even birth or death is our thoughts, coming and going. All concepts are dualistic by their very nature, hence being concepts. They have no meaning except in relationship to its opposite. So, and even having the idea that, everything is the soul, Brahman, self, and I'm one of that, and I'm that, and you are too. Sure, that's in like a spiritual way better than thinking that I'm a separate self and you're not. But those are just ideas in the end. They can be your experience though. And your experience can also be even beyond that, which the Heart Sutra speaks about. When it says it ends, the Heart Sutra ends with Gati Gati Paragata Parasangati Bodhisvaha, which means gone, eller beyond, gone, I don't remember exactly which it was, gone beyond, beyond, go very beyond, even more beyond. And awakening, oh, how wonderful, or enlightenment, how wonderful, something to that effect. So it is not, the ultimate teaching isn't, you are Brahman self and everything is, those are just ideas. It is just concepts. Even going beyond are, of course, also concepts, because we can't, everything we say is a concept or a word, but it's closer, even though there's nothing that is closer or further away. That is the ultimate teaching in a way. That is the neti or the apophatic theology within Christian mysticism. The idea of negating everything. So it's not that, we could even say that it's not that we're not the self and everything is the self. It's not that we're not the self and everything is that. It's not both. It's not neither. It's not something else. And it's not what I'm saying. And it's not what I just said, including that, and so on. Turtles all the way down. So we don't have anything to hold on to in hand. There's nothing to understand. There's nothing to gain. There's nothing to grasp. There's nothing to do. Did I say that already? That is closer, even though there's nothing closer, because everything is already what it is. Everything is already awake. Enlightenment is here. There's nothing. If everything is one thing, that is also just a logical conclusion. If everything is one thing, is everything is awakening, is, then this is it, right? It couldn't be anything else. Even though the experience of someone saying that it's not is that very enlightenment. There's no difference. Everything is the same thing. So, and it's pointing towards that, I would say.